Yeah, doing a lot of training is not easy when you have a family with young children. I remember back when I was in Sydney, when our girls were about 2 and 4, something like that. And my wife and I were both training for triathlon at the time. This is back in the 90s. Our girls are big grown ups now. We'd put the oldest child in a running stroller, and then I'd go out for my training run pushing the stroller. On my return, I would then take child number one out and put child number two into the stroller, and then my wife would take off with the stroller, and I would go off with the kids. I remember also doing my bike training on a trainer, sitting on the deck outside the house, training on the trainer with the baby monitor strapped to the handlebars, and waiting for noises, and then having to stop my training, get off the trainer, towel down, go up to see the baby, etc., etc. So there's a lot of challenges. And today we're going to hear about somebody who took on some big challenges, and at the same time while having a young family and trying to balance up other aspects of his life. So hi and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review running books to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help you keep you motivated about your own running, and maybe inspire you to try something new or different and advance your running. My name's Alan. With my co-host Liz, we're going to talk with author Harold Cabrera about his book, Chase That Smile.
Chase That Smile is Harold Cabrera's autobiography, an account of how he managed to train for 3 big endurance events in the year he turned 40. The 3 events were the Paris Marathon, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, this one was with his wife Tania, and an Ironman Triathlon. The book has 3 sections that correspond to the 3 challenges. Each section is subdivided with dates in chronological order like a journal, but the journal entries talk about more than just what happened that day. Harold has a full-time job and 2 young children, so training for these big goals proves to be challenging because of the time required to complete the training. The Ironman training alone involves midweek long runs and 6-hour bike rides. And then there are the hikes he does with his wife in order to be able to climb Kilimanjaro. More than just a personal account of every challenge faced, Harold provides insight into nutrition, the importance of training plans, and most importantly, how he developed the right mindset needed to take on such big endurance challenges. So a little bit about Harold. Harold Cabrera was born in the Philippines, grew up in Winnipeg, Canada, aka Winterpeg, and lives in London, England. He studied engineering and currently works as a software developer and data scientist for Wise Traders, where he develops stock trading systems. When he's not training for some difficult long-distance event, he spends most of his time with his family. Harold is not a first-time author. He co-authored and published a C# for Java programmers book to help Java developers learn C# programming language. So welcome to the podcast, Harold.
Hi guys, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you guys today.
So we actually, since just before we started recording, we also learned that Harold has had a couple startups. So he's quite accomplished, and he obviously always seems to have a goal of some sort going. But how about we start with the book? So how did you decide to write this book?
Right. Well, the idea for writing a book I've been thinking about it for several years before actually writing a book. In fact, during a lot of my training runs, there's always ideas and things that pop into your head. One of them is writing a book, and it's one of those kind of goals you've had, or I have, that I thought it'd be really something I'd like to try or do, try to accomplish at some point. But I never figured out a way or a topic, and until initially, actually years and years before, when I was running, I thought maybe I would write a book, something about running, just maybe completing a marathon. I thought maybe each mile of the marathon would be a chapter or something. But I ran the first marathon, and the book never materialized until when I signed up for the 3 challenges. back in like January 2017 when I was into my training program. I was on the turbo one day, and that's when the idea just kind of popped into my head of like, I'm about to turn 40. I've signed up for these 3 big challenges. Am I going through some sort of midlife crisis? And then that was like the thread that kind of like started the whole idea. The idea just really literally popped into my head. I was on the turbo trainer, and it's like, wow, that's the book. I want to maybe jot down this whole year coming up, turning 40. And I wanted to answer one of the questions is this some sort of midlife crisis? I'm turning 40. It's a big milestone. So I rang Tania, we had lunch, and I mentioned to her, look, maybe I should just jot down like, an account while I'm training for these for this year coming up, these 3 challenges, and just see what comes up. I never, apart from Tanya, never told anyone that what I was doing. So
Oh,
I
wow.
was just kind of kept it to myself. But each day I just took an account of what was coming through my head, and that's how it came about.
Before we get on to the particular challenges, you talk about midlife crisis, but I think somewhere in the book there's you go through a checklist of how to tell if you're having a midlife crisis, if I remember rightly.
Yes,
And
yes, I did.
you seem to be ticking a lot of the boxes.
Because it's not just sports cars, like, like we always kind of hear this stereotypical midlife crisis, like, oh yeah, a guy will buy a sports car when he's having a midlife crisis or something like that. But actually your Google search showed like many more like boxes to check.
Yeah, no, it was pretty funny. As I was thinking about midlife crisis, as I said in the book, I was invited to a 40th birthday party. So most of my friends around me are all turning 40. And so I just, I Googled it and said, what's a midlife crisis? And I found this checklist that was quite funny. And they have things like going to festivals, buying yourself an expensive bike, comparing yourself to others, and all sorts of weird kind of teenager, things that you'd find in these 17 magazines or something. And you kind of like ticked all of them. It seems like I was having a midlife crisis since I was like since puberty or something.
Yeah, I've pretty much been having one since I'm 25, and like still now today, like I'm comparing myself to Sarah Hall. Every time someone tells me, like our coach Bill, he'll often say like, oh, well, you can't expect to run as fast as you did because, you're not getting any younger. And I'm like, yes, but Sarah Hall is almost my age and look how fast she's running. She's like breaking records. So I'm always comparing myself to Sarah Hall.
Not a bad person to compare.
Well,
But
it is when you're so much slower, but
it's relative, isn't it, Liz?
Yeah.
But yeah, so with the midlife crisis, that's what it was just a thread I wanted to answer. It's some aspect of the book. 40, I know I've been 40 several years now. So it's just a number, I suppose. That's what I've learned, at least. And at the moment, touch wood, I don't think I'm going through any crisis yet.
Maybe you'll have another series of challenges when you hit 50. But
Exactly.
That'll be another book and another podcast.
Yes.
So why these particular challenges? So the very specific things.
Yeah, as I said, it's funny because I think the first one that came up is Mount Kilimanjaro, and I think it was 2013. The idea came into my head from the BBC. Actually, I remember listening on the radio in BBC Radio 1, and it's like a bunch of celebrities decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and so listening to their account of the challenge was really interesting to me, and I thought it was, oh wow, what a fascinating thing. And it was something completely different that I haven't done any hiking or mountaineering at that time. I've done some wall climbing and stuff, but nothing like a big trek like that. So that's the first kind of seed of the idea of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro kind of entered my head. And over the years, and I think in fact, I begin the book, my friend sent me an email, and he sent this link of this amazing poem. And in this video, it's very inspiring. And that's when it came up. I replied to my friend and I said, look, I've been thinking about Mount Kilimanjaro, and I thought it'd be a nice goal maybe we should try to all do as a friend. This is my friends in Canada. A little trip we should schedule maybe before we turn 40. And so that was Mount Kilimanjaro that started. And then from there, obviously over the years, I've heard about a couple of other friends that have done the trip. So that was the first thing, was Mount Kilimanjaro. I thought, okay, I want to try and climb Mount Kilimanjaro before I turn 40. It's just another goal to kind of shoot for before turning 40. So that's Mount Kilimanjaro. That's where the idea came from. The Paris Marathon came about, again, 2016. It was the off season. So I finished my races that year. I think I ran the Manchester Marathon 2016. I had a pretty decent time. I went sub 4 hours. So that was, I achieved my goal. So I thought, I wanted to run the London Marathon, but the
Hard
London
to get into.
It's impossible to get into.
And you live in London, so I think
exactly.
You get an edge.
You do, but they used to have the ballot entry. If you try after 6 years, you automatically get a place, but they've taken that off now. I don't think that's available anymore.
Yeah, because Alan, I think, has been entering every year, and I think it's been more than
I'm 3 years. I think 3 years and counting. 3 rejections.
Oh right, 3 rejections. Yeah, so it's impossible to get into. And a friend of mine just ran the Paris Marathon in 2016, and he was raving about it. And so I did just on the whim. I did a Google search, found out the dates for the Paris, and it was a big race. It's like 14,000 people that would run the event. So on the whim, I thought it would be like London, impossible to get into. So I just signed up, and surprisingly, I got a place. So
fantastic. So not as hard as London.
No, not at all. So that was pretty exciting. So I thought, oh, wow, now I better start training. So that was the Paris marathon. And then the following month, I was thinking, I've been doing triathlons now for several years at that point. And I've done several half Ironmans distances, but I've never done a full one. And it's still, even now when I think about it, it kind of like terrifies me. It's quite an intimidating distance. Sure. So
I bet it's even more intimidating because you've done the half, so you know how that feels. Like, exactly. All I know is I know I've done a marathon and I know how that feels. And, I've tried to do 100-kilometer bike ride. I know how that feels. And an Ironman is like way more than 100-kilometer bike ride and a marathon at the end.
Yeah,
and a swim. Like,
and the swim is all three aspects of it is because I know what it feels like with the marathon, as you guys know, towards the end of it. A bike ride for that long, it's like, what? And the swim terrifies me. I didn't think I can actually complete the swim, and that's what's been kind of bearing me from entering. So that was, in a sense, that was my biggest hurdle, and it seemed impossible for me to do an Ironman distance. But again, I thought, okay, I'm turning 40. Again, let's push it, and so I found a race, and I've been thinking about maybe it's time, because I think at that point I might have done about 3 half Ironmans. I thought maybe, okay, let's go for it and try to do a full Ironman. And that's when I signed up. And as soon as I pressed enter, I was like, whoa, I was really excited and nervous and scared at the same time. So yeah, and then that was just at the end of 2016.
So basically what you went through is what all runners go through after their end of season and their off season. They just they finish their last race. They're like, I don't want to race anymore, because you get tired of racing because you've raced all spring, all summer, all fall. You finish your race and you're like, phew, I don't have to train. I don't have to follow a training program. I mean, we usually continue training, but more, it's a bit more leisurely. And then a couple weeks go by and you forget everything that you were feeling when you finished that last race, and you start browsing the computer for more races. And basically you end up registering for a whole bunch because you have all this extra time, so you fill up your next year race calendar.
That's exactly it. And you forget about the pain that you went through and the commitment and the sacrifice of the season. It became kind of blocked out until you signed up and you realized, what have I done? but yeah, and then eventually I've researched, and Kilimanjaro was on the list, obviously. So I've signed up for all three by the end of 2016, and I'm like, well, okay. So and I planned out, when we'll do the based on when I think the Paris Marathon was in April, and the Ironman was in July, and then we wanted to do. Ideally, we would have done Kilimanjaro in September because that's like when Tania and myself's birthday are. But it wouldn't have fit because our youngest daughter was about to start we call it primary school here, so reception, which I think kindergarten in Canada.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, okay, it can't be a way for that. It's just a bit mean if we plan to have my parents come over to look after the girls while we're gone. So we thought it would have been too much for them. So we decided to go in June instead for Kilimanjaro, and we found a great company to sign up with that allow you to kind of cancel up to like 3 weeks before. So that kind of like made us decide, okay, let's go for it. We've signed up, and once you booked it, and then you're like, okay, let's make it happen. So yeah, so
wow.
I thought that's how the whole year kind of planned out.
Was there any particular attraction for Nottingham, or did it just fall in the right time period for you?
Yeah, there was. So the Outlaw is a big race. There's a magazine here called 220 Triathlon. It's a UK triathlon magazine. And, I've been reading about it, obviously, because you learn a lot about the sport. And the Nottingham, the Outlaw is one of the main races that kind of rate, and it's good for beginners. So when I was searching for races, I wanted to get a beginner-friendly Ironman, if there is such a thing.
Yeah.
So it's relatively
The water's like a super giant swimming pool because it's the rowing center, I think.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
I used to live in Nottingham. Me and my
right.
wife were married in Nottingham. I lived there for 3 years. My wife went to university there. And we went to the rowing championships in 1986, I think. So it's probably the same piece of water.
Yeah,
Where they
I
used
could.
to
Yeah,
do
it's
the
National Aquatic Center.
yeah,
Beautiful. It's a rowing lake, as you know. I think it's probably
yeah,
3 kilometers or
kilometers long.
2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, and that's one of the things I thought. Okay, to swim instead of it's got to be open water, obviously, but it's in the lake, so you won't get any tides or currents or anything like that.
Or
And
sharks.
or
Or
sharks.
sharks.
That's it. Yeah. No waves. So relatively easy. And I looked at it, and the review said it's fairly flat, no wind as well. So there's no choppy water. So that, in terms of relatively easy, it's a good beginner friendly in terms of open water swim. So that ticked the box. And then the run was flat.
That
And the
definitely
bike,
ticks the box.
that ticks the box as well. And again, similarly, the ride is fairly flat. There's just one little hill, but nothing major. So it's a beginner friendly, and everyone rates the course and the event. The organization is really good. So yeah, and you see a lot of triathletes in races as well, and you see it's big in the UK. You see they get the Ironman tattoo, and they also have the Outlaw tattooed on their calves. So
Oh, wow.
so that's why I chose the Outlaw as the event. And plus, it's the other thing is I want it to be fairly. I don't want to go to a different country. Roth was actually another one in my list. Challenge Roth it's a race. I don't know if it's still around. It's in Germany, and again they swim in the canal, and it's a huge event. But I thought traveling, it's just too much of the logistics. So keep it simple. We can drive to Nottingham, and and do the race there. So that's why we chose Nottingham.
And is it called the Outlaw because that's a reference to Robin Hood?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I did look it up, but yeah, probably yes. Robin Hood, yeah, yeah, probably.
So it seems like when you were younger, I mean, I don't know if you want to kind of go over sort of your history, but like you came from the Philippines and you ended up living in Winnipeg, aka Winterpeg, because like
Yes,
winter is so cold over there.
Yeah.
very cool.
Coming from a fellow Canadian, but that lives in Montreal. So then you ended up in London, but it seems like when you were younger, you kind of just you finished school and then you went on a trip that was supposed to last a month, but it like lasted 8 months or a year or something. And then all of a sudden you're living in London. I mean, I don't know if you want to kind of go through that, but I mean, how did all that happen? And how was it to move from the Philippines, where it must be really warm, to move to a country that has winter?
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning. Like, so I was born in the Philippines and grew up there till I was about just before my 13th birthday. And we lived in, big city in the Philippines. Um, but yeah, so my parents, they worked and stuff. But as you know, at the time, the Philippines is a developing country. So my parents thought there's just a lot more opportunities in Canada. And my aunt lives in Winnipeg.
Oh, that's how they chose Winnipeg. Okay.
Exactly. So they sponsored us and we immigrated there. So literally packed up everything in the Philippines, sold everything and moved to Canada. So for me, like I was really excited actually. We're fortunate we learned English in the Philippines. So when we moved, in fact, as soon as I think got off the plane, I just started speaking English. Whereas my brother and my sister still spoke Tagalog, which is the Filipino language. Because I was a kid, I wanted to fit in. So that's how we ended up in Winnipeg. And in fact, and that's all my formative years is in Winnipeg. Still my best friends. My family is still there. My parents, my brother, my sister, they're all still in Winnipeg. And it is cold. In fact, I think the coldest I've ever been, I was talking to someone about, I think it's like minus 62 degrees or something with the wind chill.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, exactly. I great tell stories, but Winnipeg, you get used to it, right? Because you go from your house to your car and then into the building, and we have cars that are plugged in, so they'll start in the winter and all that. But we have beautiful summers as well. We got the lakes and everything, if you ignore the mosquitoes, but we won't talk about that. Winnipeg's great.
No, don't talk about this. Just the good things.
Yeah. So growing up in Winnipeg, that's my formative years. So I went to high school there and went through university and studied computer engineering at the University of Manitoba. And then afterwards, towards just before graduation, and again, it was just before 2000, we were thinking about, okay, we're about to graduate. I came up with this idea because we were talking about that the Sydney Olympics in 2000 was about to happen, right? And I thought, oh, it'd be cool to go to the Olympics. And my Olympic dream was to drink with the athletes. That was my Olympic dream, is to find an athlete and have a fight with them. So I managed to convince my friends, after university, we'd go traveling before starting work. At the time, there was no thing as a gap year, but now it's a gap. It's a thing. It's a phrase, a gap year. It wasn't a phrase.
But I don't think you have that really, like, it's not really common in Canada. But
No, it's not
I
at
know
all.
Alan was telling me it's common in the UK.
Very common, yeah.
It's massive in Australia as well.
It's a thing to do, and it makes sense. I mean, you go to university, but you learn so much more about life traveling.
Mm-hmm. I do think it makes a lot of sense, just because, like, I remember going from high school to, in Quebec, we have CEGEP before we have university, but you do have to, in CEGEP, like, you have to take the right program in CEGEP to go into the program you want to be in university. So you already kind of have to know, but like, you're not even 18 yet. I remember kind of almost being shocked because I wasn't prepared. I'm like, and what? I have to choose what? Like, I have to choose what to do for the rest of my life. Like, I didn't even know who I was,
Exactly. No, so I recommend traveling greatly. I hope my daughters would go, and I would encourage them to go by the time they finish university. Do it after university, though. It's my recommendation. That way you don't get tempted and not go to university. But that's just me. Anyway, so we managed to pull it off. We ended up going to Australia. We did like Fiji, and we backpacked to Fiji, and then New Zealand, and then Australia. I had a working visa in Australia because as being Canadian, we're allowed to work there for, I think, a year. Some of my friends came back, but when we're out there, Australia was a pivotal moment for myself. At university, being Canadian, you have this dream of you go to school. After that, you get the big job, the big TV, the big house, the big car. And that was the path.
Then you go through a midlife crisis because you
Exactly.
realize that doesn't make you happy.
No, not at all. But sitting in Australia, I remember I was on the beach in Fiji, and I had like, sitting on the beach, I had like a backpack and, shorts and a sticky towel, and I'm just very happy. And, it kind of opened my eyes to other possibilities of where life could take you. And traveling was really appealing to me. And you almost, if you travel, you kind of just want to stay in that moment and just travel the whole world. And you hear stories from other travelers where they've been to Bali, they've been to India, and you're like, I want to go to those places, right? So Australia was a big thing for us. My best friends from university, they're best friends now. We even became closer friends after that experience. And for all of us, I think it was a pivotal thing. So that kind of got me thinking about traveling. Eventually, you do have to come back home when you ran out. Or actually, I left because I started a company in Canada. Then I went traveling, but my business partners were still kind of working on it. And eventually said, you got to come back home because, this whole company is based off my thesis. Is my whole idea. You got to go do it. So I went back to Winnipeg, and then we did the entrepreneurial thing. Unfortunately, the business, that was just before the .com boom, and the funding eventually ran out. And after that, that's when I thought, okay, I've got this break. What's the next thing? So I did a bit of other traveling to Thailand. And in Thailand, I met Caroline, who's one of my best friends. She's English. So again, it's supposed to be a couple of weeks in Thailand, turning into 3 months, because when you're away, you always want to extend the traveling as long as possible. And Thailand at the time is very cheap. So you can live with in $2, you have a hut and a meal, and that could last for 2 or 3 days. So I was able to stay out there for a long time. But then eventually I have to come back and work again in Winnipeg, because eventually you need to work. You realize you do have to work to fund these trips. An opportunity. So after a few years, this is around 2003, there was a cheap flight to the UK, and I saw it on the paper. I thought, okay, wow, it's a cheap flight. Caroline's there. I just met her. I thought I could stay in London in the UK. And again, being Canadian at the time, we're allowed to work in the UK on it's like a working holiday visa. So Canadians and Australians and South Africans, people in the Commonwealth basically, can come here and work in the bars or incidental work, so waitressing and stuff. So I said to my mom, no, I'm gonna go do some traveling. Again, it's supposed to be a 1 month holiday, but 1 month turned into, right now, 19 years.
Oh boy. So when did your parents discover you're not gonna come back?
They still think he's coming back.
Yeah, they still think, at some point. No, so that 1 month, it was a month actually, because I think I had I have my cousin's wedding coming up, and I'm supposed to be part of the wedding party. And then, so being out here in the UK, I had a working holiday visa, but I wasn't quite sure whether, because I had a job offer in Winnipeg that I turned down to go traveling, just because I thought, I guess I knew Winnipeg kind of is not where I'm going to end up. I just kind of want to go out and see the world. And London's a great place to kind of be your base in terms of traveling, because there's so many cheap flights from here. So yeah, so I thought I'd stay and I'll try to work and see if I can get a job and make this trip as long as possible. So my flight, I had a return flight ticket that I ended up just not showing up for.
Oh boy.
And then I had to explain to my mom, I was like, look, there was that was it. There was a festival in Spain. I thought, oh, this is really cool festival. I think I'm going to check out. So I'm going to miss the flight. I called my cousin and explained that I don't think I'm going to make it to your wedding. He understood. But yeah, so I think at that point, I knew I wanted to just travel, but probably my mom knew that I probably left home for good. Because my sister said afterwards, she emailed me, it's like, yeah, my mom was going to my room just crying. So at that point, she probably thought I'm never coming back. But, I do come back every year visiting them and everything. But yeah, that was it. I left home for good. I didn't even know, but, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all kind of hope that for our children, but then when they do it, it makes us sad.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
we'll go, okay, go in, fly on your own, fly
Yeah.
free. And then when they do, you get all sad. Oh, where are my
Oh,
Yeah.
children?
Yeah. It means they did a good parenting job. It's just that like they wish that they had not done such a good one, I guess, in the moment.
You
yeah.
mentioned you mentioned your friend Caroline. She's actually a key character as a friend to you because she was responsible for introducing you to Tanya, who became your wife. Is that right?
Yes, yes. She is. So I met Caroline and her friend, her sister Marianne on the beach in Koh Samui. We have this beautiful, like a tiny beach, Mainam Beach, and we have these tiny little huts, and we just stayed out there, just like it's idyllic paradise. All you're doing is lying in the hammocks, eating amazing Thai food, swimming beautiful sea. So we really got on, and then so when I moved to the UK, to London, or when traveling to London, I should say, I stayed at her place, and I met Tanya via her because Tanya and her went to university together. So I met Tanya actually. I think it was that same year that I moved out here. It was my birthday, and I had just moved to this new shared house, but so nobody kind of knew. I just met my flatmates. I didn't tell them it was my birthday. So Caroline took me out for clubbing in Fabric actually. It's a big drum and bass club in London. It's a really famous one. So we went out just before we went clubbing because normally in when you go out clubbing, they don't open. You don't start till 11 or 12 at night. So beforehand, you go out to the pub having a few pre-drinks, and that's so Tanya came out, and that's how I first met Tanya, and then we ended up going to the club and having a great time. It was like partying all night.
Yeah, so amidst all this partying and traveling and everything, like how did you get into running, and how did you, because Paris was not your first marathon, you had done a few marathons before that. So how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I got into running after Australia. So coming back from Australia, I was full of optimism again. I learned a lot about myself and life. And in Australia, I had this sense of that anything's possible. Um, so as long as you try, you can do anything. So I have this great sense of I can conquer and do anything, and I kept trying to prove that to myself by taking on challenges, and running was one of them. So when it came back, we did a lot of partying in Australia, yes, and there was one point where we were climbing this glacier in New Zealand, and we were put in separate groups. First, I was put in the fastest group, and then so we're hiking this glacier, and I just couldn't keep up with them. I was so unfit, probably because all the drinking I've been doing throughout the trip. So I dropped back, but that was a pivotal moment to myself because I said, look, I don't ever want to feel that way again, to be really unfit and not being able to do something physical. So I thought, when I get back home, I would try to do something more active and, do some more sports. So when I came back after that trip, I signed up for, I think it was like a marathon relay. Yeah, the Winnipeg, the Manitoba Marathon relay. A friend of mine that was working, and he said, "Look, my company's putting together a team. We're one guy short. You want to do a leg of the marathon?" It's like, yes, immediately. So I think I got the shortest leg of the relay. It was like 7 or 8K, and that's how I kind of started. It was my first kind of running race, and then the fall after that race, I had such a great experience. I thought, this is great. I really enjoyed it. And then the following year, I decided I would try for the half marathon. And so I think it was maybe 2001 where I kind of signed up and ran my first half marathon, maybe 2001, 2002. So that's where my running journey kind of started.
Wow. So like you don't do anything like start small. I mean, you just,
Half-baked.
yeah, you just you didn't do the 5K and then the 10K and then no, you just went like you were like, yeah, I did this relay. I think I'm good to do half marathon. Just like that.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about training or running at that point. Even my shoes was like really wrong too. So I was getting shin splints and everything. But yeah, I enjoyed that first half marathon, and I took a lot of the mental stuff, or like the positive stuff in the training from the trip, and I managed to complete the race. And I think I even went under 2 hours. So I
Oh
was
wow.
pretty,
Okay.
even though I didn't walk for like a week afterwards. It was a good race. And ever since I decided I would do a race, at least one race each year. And I have done, signed up to a half marathon at least, until I did my first full marathon. And that was in 2008. So
Okay.
2008, I was already in the UK. Tanya and I had Sophia, our daughter. And perhaps I think I was about to turn 30 or just turned 30. I thought, okay, let's push it, let's do something a bit more challenging, even though I didn't realize having a baby is a big challenge in itself. And I decided to, I would sign up for my first marathon. And Tanya actually also signed up. I managed to convince her to do her first half marathon after, and this would have been, I don't know, less than a year after she's given birth. So
Wow.
we signed up to do the Amsterdam marathon for myself, and she did the half marathon in 2008. So that was my first marathon. And I think the same year I signed up and did my first first triathlon. And again, perhaps it's the having Sophia or having, starting a family was the impetus to kind of try, perhaps do something else, or do more things, to challenge ourselves. I don't know why, but we thought, oh, having a baby would be easy. Let's also sign up for races. But yeah, so I thought, okay, we're not going to be going out drinking as much anymore. We're going to have a baby. And we moved to a new flat, because our flat in Old Street was just too small. So we moved to a new flat. And then there was a new gym that I had to go to, and they had a swimming pool. And I thought, I always wanted to learn how to swim properly. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be going out we're not going to go out partying. Not, we have a kid now. So,
or so you thought.
Yeah, or so we thought. So I'll be up really early because you won't be sleeping. So I'll sign up for a triathlon in order to learn how to swim.
That's
so
pretty extreme.
Yeah. So that's when I first took up triathlons, and ever since after that year, I started doing triathlons as opposed to half marathons, and that's kind of the continue on from that journey.
It's pretty obvious listening to you talking about traveling and the spirit of traveling, and watching your face while you're talking about it, in fact, which is great being able to see each other, because you can see you're just lighting up as you're talking about your experiences. And when you're talking about your sporting efforts as well, you have this sort of, I don't know, this streak of adventure spirit within you, but also the way you can see it on your face. You're obviously a very strong visualizer, and this comes across in the book as well, where you talk about affirmations,
Yes.
visualizations. You talk about visualizing, the positive runner's high sort of moments when you're out doing it, and you have this phrase that occurs all the way through the book, which is sort of your personal affirmation, which is, it's very simple: life is good, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell us some more about that.
Yeah, life is good, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so simple. There's not much to explain. But within those words, it's quite powerful, especially for me. And I think the first time I read the phrase "life is good," I was reading this book about this man. He is something about when he was 92 years old or something, or 94. He decided to start high school because he never graduated, and it was his story of his life. And in the book, he uses the phrase "life is good," and it was his mantra. And I remember reading it. We were in 158, my flat in the house share in that I first lived in London, and that kind of really got to me. So it's such a simple phrase, "life is good," and it's almost self-affirming because life is good, your life will be good. You
Yeah.
must have heard, like, if you focus on something negative, negative things will come. Focus on positive, positive things will come. So it was such a simple thing and really stuck to me when everything, something, when something good happens or bad happens, I just said life is good. And that's where that phrase come from. And then I added thank you, thank you, thank you. That's just because I felt naturally life is good. I just felt gratitude and grateful for everything I have, whatever it is. Sometimes not much. Whether you have little or a lot, you got to be thankful. And I just felt like saying it, and I say it every day actually. With it actually after a run, a good run, you get that good run, you have to feel the runner's high, and you look up in the sky, it's beautiful blue sky, and you just life is good. That's how you feel after a good run, isn't it? Even sometimes after a bad run, after you finish that run.
I feel like that phrase, because like we were reading the book and we've started our marathon training for a fall marathon, and like we had a lactate threshold run yesterday to do. And so I don't know, like I think I had just read a section of the book, and because you repeat that several times, like life is good, and it just kind of reminds me of because I used to work in a hospital, so I know like there's a lot of people that would just like love to be able to be outside and do the things we're doing, and they can't for different reasons. And so it kind of just like reminded me of that, and it made me think of that during the run. I was sort of catching myself thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this 2K that's left of this lactate threshold to be done, because it's that's when it was a 6K lactate threshold run, so we were at around like 4K, so it's the point where it gets painful. And I just thought, like, what, I mean, we choose to do this, and this is you're not being forced to do this, it's because you want to, and should be grateful that you're able to do it. So I kind of had that thought, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna like be wishing for the finish line. I'm just gonna try and feel what it feels like right now.
Yeah. Exactly. And that phrase, I love it. And it's like my mantra. Just it sets myself up during the day. After today I went for a hill repeats on the bike, finished it, and just like, yeah, life is good, as you say. We're thankful just being able to go outside. I mean, a lot of people aren't able to. So that simple thing, you got to be thankful for. And there's so many things to be thankful if you choose them. Yeah. And in fact, I think I sent that in the book. People always mention to me, "Oh, you're such a positive, optimist person," and I tried to reflect on that. And where did that come from? And I think I traced it back when I was a kid. I used to think I live in my little fantasy world. When things doesn't go well or doesn't go right when you're a kid or whatever, I used to fantasize to live in this fictitious. Well, it's not fictitious at the time, actually. At the time, I watched this American sitcoms called Full House. And in the Full House episode,
I used to watch Full House.
Yeah, so within the 30-minute episode, any dramas would be resorted. I used to love Joey. He lived in this tiny basement flat, of the house, and which is surprising because San Francisco, they have tiny houses. I don't know how their house does, but anyway.
Yeah, but this is like took place in like the 80s, so the houses were bigger back then.
Yeah, that's true. So when things doesn't go well, I just thought, I live in this Full House thing, and I think that kind of stemmed from it when you learn how to control your thoughts and emotions using your thoughts. And then so when things doesn't go right or whatnot, I try to just think, okay, well, how can it be good? How can you look at it from a different perspective so it's in a positive light as opposed to good? Because most situations, depending on how you look at it, can be both negative or positive. And so that just kind of stemmed, eventually when I learned life is good, thank you, I just start using it each day because I can apply it to so many things. And right now it's like my compass, so I say it, and there's a lot to be thankful for. It kind of sets me up for the day or whatever it is that I'm doing.
While I was reading the book, I was always imagining that your three thank yous were for your wife and your two girls, like one thank you for each. But I don't know, it might be coincidental. But
Oh, that's a good way. To be honest with you, Alan, it's not anyone in particular. It's just thank you
yeah,
because one's not enough. I don't know. It's just I
yeah.
feel like there's a lot of gratitude to give, so I say it three times, and it just it works, or it works for me at least.
So the other thing that you did in marathon training, I mean, obviously you had a plan and everything, and you were very positive about your training. And actually, you know, you did. It's not like your training went perfectly according to plan. You did miss some training runs and some bike rides and things like that because of family, just not being able to schedule them in and those kinds of things. Before we get into that, I'm just kind of interested in how you ended up using heart rate zones. You know, instead of like, I don't know, for example, like me and Alan, we use paces for our training. So, you know, we have like marathon pace, 5K pace, but you have heart rate zones like zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm guessing is usually the ones kind of
Yeah,
it's broken up into 5.
yeah.
So how did you end up using heart rate zones?
Because that's the first training plan I saw and I found.
Oh, okay.
In fact, you're mentioning about lactate training threshold run. I was like, I've never done that.
Yeah,
That's
but
why
you
probably
probably
I'm not
have.
sub 3 hour, or you guys are running 3 hour marathons.
Yeah,
um,
you probably have. It's just that it would
It'll
have
be a
been
zone
phrased
four run
like,
or something like
yeah,
that.
oh
like
right, yeah.
zone 4 for 30 minutes or something like
Oh
that.
wow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, no, so that I I had I used to have my first heart monitor was a Polar watch, and I was using that when I was doing my half marathons and stuff. And then I think my wife got me a Garmin for for my birthday once, and in 2015. So that's I start using the watch, and when I was looking for the a training plan, I just went on the Garmin site and found a training plan, and it uses heart rate zones. So, and it kind of made sense to me. Just following the zones, and sticking to certain zones, that aerobic versus anaerobic runs for my longer runs and stuff, and speed works with your bit thresholds and all that stuff. So that's how I started using heart rate zones. So you wanted an early question. I forgot what it was.
No, that was basically it. I think. How did you use? Yeah. What prompted you to do that? Well, that's where you started, so you stuck with it.
You guys do you paces, right? So you pick a pace for
Yeah. Yeah.
your time, and then you have to run at a certain
yeah,
pace.
and then based on like your goal pace, I mean, then your training paces are sort of you always have these tables like the plan we're using right now is the advanced marathon 3rd edition. But there's, if you look at like other training books like Jack Daniel's book, then he actually has like charts in there with if you run a race, a 5K, for example, then it'll have all the equivalent sort of paces for your other distances. And so you could use those for training. If, for example, you don't know what pace you can actually run a
Right.
half marathon or 10K or marathon in. So I guess it comes out to the same thing. It's just the thing is like you kind of have to use some discretion if you're on a hilly course or something like that, where I guess that's probably where the advantage is with the heart rate training, because like you're going with your heart rate. So you just pay attention to heart rate and not like,
Yeah.
oh, this is too much effort because I'm going up a hill.
You know, 2 years ago, I was following my friend. He was doing the Makaton program. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard of
All
that
about
one. Yeah.
heart rates, just keeping super low heart rates.
Yeah.
I tried it for a while, and I thought you just run really, really slowly.
All the time.
But the last few years, I've actually started doing some ultra marathons, and in fact, I kind of find it a slightly less pressure than the marathon, because in a marathon you're kind of always shooting for a time, whereas in an ultra you just want to finish the distance, and try to eat as much as you can. So that's really right up my alley. uh, so and it's more relaxed feels like, because you're not on the pace, because depending on the terrain, you can't keep up the same pace as you would on the road, because most of the ultras, as you probably guys know, is on trail, right? And you can't run as fast on the trail as on the road. So you don't pay attention as much on the time. So my training's slightly been different. But having said that, I've been putting in a lot of time on the bike lately, because my daughter's friend, her dad is from Colombia. He's into cycling, so I've been riding out a lot with him, and I've improved immensely just riding with him. Because I know I'm like a lone wolf in terms of training. I just train by myself because I kind of just I don't really compete. I compete against myself as opposed to other people. But the negative side of that is that you don't improve as much. I don't think, if you're training, you guys are in the running club, so you probably know if you're running with someone, you kind of push each other. But been riding with him, my cycling has improved a lot, I found. So there are benefits training with someone and varying up your training.
Even simple things like you made a date to run with, a couple of club members at 8 o'clock in the morning at a certain place. You got to be there. They're kind of waiting for you.
Exactly.
So it keeps you disciplined. And it certainly it helps you in terms of, a bit of competitive edge as well. But the disadvantage is if you've got a lot of other things going on in your personal life, like small children who are ill or need to go to school, or, vacations with families and stuff like that, you've got to slot your running in around, or your biking or your exercises in around the other things. And now that those slots don't fall at a convenient time for a club participation, usually, that's probably why you end up as a lone wolf.
No, absolutely, that's exactly right, because it's, as you know, it's hard enough to juggle work, life, and everything else in between your training. So having another commitment at a certain time that you can't move, it's just another block, hurdle to overcome. So and I found when I was doing the challenges, it was very important to be flexible. And I'm lucky and fortunate at the time, because I work from home. I've been working from home for years now. And this is before working from home became a thing in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. But so I've been very fortunate to have this flexibility working from home. And now, hopefully, actually, since the pandemic, people should be able to realize now they have more flexibility in their time. So, commuting in London, an hour is like average to get to work. An hour there, an hour back, you get 2 hours, right? Which I don't have to do. So I can easily put in my training around that time. And at the time when the girls were super young, it was quite important to just be able to move your training around in order to be able to actually do them. So having into club or training partners, it just wasn't going to work at the time.
It strikes me, talking with you and the way that you juggle your schedule, that there are a lot of people around who say, oh yeah, you're kind of lucky. I'm retired, for example. So they say, oh, you're kind of lucky you have all that time. I would never have time for that. You seem to have sort of made the time. What would you say to people who say, well, I don't really have time to do the training?
No, it's like, you do make the time, or there's, you prioritize it. It becomes important. And my family understands it's quite an important part. And also for me, because you're working from home, it's kind of like my only time to get outside. If I don't go out training, I'm at home all day, and that's not healthy. So, for example, today I was up at 6 a.m. to be able to get in, on the bike by 6:30, and then back home before 9, because I had to drive my daughter to the sports camp that she's working at. So, you do fit it all in if you just kind of like be flexible and move it around. And try to go to bed early, so you do spend less time at night, but I guess you just get better at organizing your time and prioritizing what's important. Work's up there, obviously, and the girls, looking after girls, they're slightly bigger now, so it becomes easier. But yeah, you just kind of again, it's prioritize. And if you make the running as up there, I think you'll find the time to move things around it, or move your running around and able to slot it in.
It was impressive that you managed to do Ironman training while your kids were small. Like, how old were Sophia and Lisa at that time?
So Sophia in 2017, she would have been like 8 or 9, 8 turning 9, and Lisa was 3, turning 4.
Oh wow, okay.
So she
Yeah,
was,
because
yeah,
Ironman involves like 2 times a day training sometimes. So
yes.
how did you squeeze those in? And what did you do when you couldn't fit it in? Like, let's say you had to skip a workout. Did you try and make it up, or did you try and like did you just pick up the schedule where you left off?
In the training plan I was following, there was they would say which one's the key session. So the
Okay.
key sessions are the ones you don't want to miss. So that
Okay.
would be like perhaps your long run or your Saturday ride. So those are the 2 key sessions. And a Saturday ride, there'll be times you'll be riding 140 Ks and then
Wow.
doing a 10K run afterwards. So you have like, a 7-hour session on a Saturday. And what worked for me was like, I try to do things very first thing in the morning. The first thing I do is do my training. Otherwise, for myself, if I don't do it first thing, it won't get done. It's very rare. Like, if I miss it in the first thing, I have to skip it. And sometimes you pick your battles too. So the key runs or the key training sessions, you try not to miss. And that worked for me. And again, I just planned the week ahead, what's happening that week, whatever's, with not just my schedule, but Tania's schedule and the girls' schedule with school and whatnot. Again, my advantage at the time is being able to work from home and flexible with my time. So as long as, I do I do the drop off the girls to school. Sometimes I would, walk Sophia or Lisa to her nursery. Then I'll run back. I do my run, and then right as soon afterwards, right on my desk and be typing away by 9 o'clock or by 10 o'clock and stuff. So yeah, so just trying to fit in the key sessions. If you miss some, try not to miss the key sessions and you try to make it up. And also sometimes you have to listen to your body, right? You probably know you want to do a session, but your body is just, you haven't recovered enough or you're not feeling well. I think I mentioned in the book, I learned this trick. Sometimes you don't want to go training, but it's like, or you feel really sluggish or crap. It's the 10-minute rule is, I heard it's like, okay, however badly you're feeling, go out and go out for 10 minutes and then reassess. If you still feel like crap after 10 minutes, then call it quits and, train another day.
How many times have you come back when you apply the
Very rarely, actually, Alan.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Because once you're out, you're like, well, I'm out here now. I might as well do the session,
And it's
right?
not so bad.
Yeah.
I do that with the weather.
So it's a good trick to get yourself out there, isn't it?
If it's really cold or really wet and it looks really horrible outside, I go, okay, I'll just go out, and if it's really bad, then after 1K, I'll come back.
But then when you're out there, you're like, oh no, this is fun.
Yeah, one thing I found fascinating reading your book was the chapter on the sort of summiting or the hike up Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
I guess because I've heard all about it from friends who've either done it or they're going to do it. We have both in our club, and I did a little bit of running in the Himalayas, and we got to 5,300 meters, I think. Wow. Whatever that. So I thought, I don't believe anybody's ever climbed Everest, because you can't possibly go higher than that and breathe.
Yes.
It feels impossible. And then I hear that, the Kilimanjaro hike, and it just sounds, hike, that sounds easy enough. Actually goes much higher than that. It goes even higher than that. There's even less oxygen. And so I was fascinated to hear about your experience with that. And maybe you could just describe it a little bit, how it went, just for our readers. What is a Kilimanjaro hike? What does it entail, and how does it get done?
Kilimanjaro, it's the highest mountain in Africa. I think it's at 5,895 meters. And I think it's actually growing too. I think it's growing by a couple centimeters each year.
Oh no! So if you wanted to do it, like, you should probably get going.
Get in quick
now.
Yeah. Or wait a bit longer. You could say you climbed higher. But yeah, so, and it's a hike, that means it's not technical. So you don't need any ropes. It's high, but not high enough that you need oxygen. I don't think. although our guides did brought some oxygen with them just in case it was for emergency purposes. And there's several routes you can take up the mountain. There's I mentioned the book. The route that we took is the Mashami route, which they dubbed as the whiskey route because it's the harder of the other routes. There's an easier route, I couldn't pronounce it, Mawenga or something, and that's the Coca-Cola route, and okay. Slightly easier. And there's another route coming up from another side of the mountain where it required ropes and harnesses, and that's technical climbing. But in this sense, the route we took is a hike because it's not technical, so anyone can trek up the mountain. And you can do it in several options. I think the shortest you can do it is probably 6 days. We decided to do it in 7 days, just so you slightly have an extra day to acclimatize to the altitude. As you mentioned, Alan, when you're climbing over 5,000, the altitude really gets you because you can't breathe. Like there's no oxygen or very thin. And that's the toughest part of the challenge. And in fact, I was reading about it when I was researching. It's a bit of it's the luck of the draw. You could be the fittest person, but if you can't adjust to the altitude, you're just not going anywhere. Or it could be very unfit. And if you adjust well to altitude, you're up there. You can walk up easy.
So you guys had some headaches and stuff. So what kind of category does that fall into? Like, would you say that you and Tania adjusted well to the altitude, or?
Well, I adjusted relatively better than her because she started getting headaches. Her and this other Dutch couple that was in our group from day one. So, and I think we were just at around over 2,000 meters or something after day one. And there, you can tell it's headaches. For Rinze, one of the guys from Amsterdam, he actually threw up the first day. And we have like a 7-day climb, so we're doing it for 7 days. And it was a very short schedule because we all flew in from various places and then started to climb the following day. And so for Tania, she started getting headaches, so they just took ibuprofen. I didn't start getting headaches till about day 3 when we're over 3,000 meters. First, I thought they were faking it. I was like, headaches, what? But then when you start experiencing it, you're like, oh, it's real. It's not fake news. And so ibuprofen was the go-to to kind of manage it. And until the final day where we had to do the summit bid, and we were with our research to help with altitude. There's this medicine you can take called Diamox, and it's to do with to help you with altitude sickness. Basically, there are side effects, but I don't know what they are. I trusted my wife; she did all the research, and she's like, "Here, just take this." So that helped somewhat. So throughout the climb, the first 6 days, it was challenging. Certainly each day, because the steepness and the length, and also there's a few times when you have to descend as well as ascend, because you want to, like, the maximum is you walk up high and then you sleep low, so that you acclimatize and then you sleep low, and you do that over and over to acclimatize better to the altitude. But again, the up and down, especially the down was a bit harder on the knees than going up. Going up is actually easier, even though it's more of a struggle. But in terms of your joints and stuff, going down is harder for the joints and stuff. But summit night was a whole different level. And it was very, very challenging. First of all, because you've been climbing for 6 days, so you're quite exhausted anyway, and getting some sleep, and it's cold. We talk about Winnipeg being cold, but and it got up to -20, I think, when we went for the summit. So for Winnipeggers, like, oh, -21, I'll be in a t-shirt. But it was, but been living in London for years, so -20 was very cold. And then so you got the cold, you got the altitude is the hardest. And imagine walking up, like, so we started the summit night. We woke up, I think, just about midnight in order to summit for the sunrise. And so you start climbing, and you just have no reference points. You're in the dark. All you see is like your head torches. There was a full moon, and you look you look up, you see the people above you with torches. To the right, you get the mountain, Mawenga Mountain, I think, and then to the left is just the silhouette of the mountain against the sky, and that's your reference point for hours. So it doesn't seem like you're moving anywhere. You're just marching on the spot. And I think that section is 5K, but it took us like 7 hours.
Oh wow!
To climb it. And 5K to us runners, like, oh, that's nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do that in 20 minutes, probably
Like,
less than in your pace, probably like 17
well,
minutes.
or in the trails, like, oh, it'll take me an hour, but no, I guess not.
Yeah.
Actually, I was pretty impressed also by the amount of clothing that they suggested you bring, because I get made fun of a lot, like, because I overdress in the winter. Like, I'll wear like two sets of tights and things like that. And in my club mates just kind of look at me and they're like, you weirdo. But I think in the book you mentioned that they suggested that you wear like 3 pairs of pants and 5 tops or something.
Yeah.
How much clothing did you have for that hike? Because that definitely adds a degree of difficulty, I think.
Yeah, no, well, and plus, well, first of all, we're walking, so we're not running, so you're not concerned about mobility. But yeah, so I had like a long johns on, and then my climbing trousers. I had another layer windbreaker, but I didn't put it on. So I had two for my legs, and then have like my base layer, and then a fleece, and then yeah, I had like three or four, no, four at least for my upper body, and then a toque or a beanie for the English. And yeah, so we did have several layers, but and I had like a foot warmer for my boots. So that was good. But it was cold. It's minus 18. In fact, I had like my bladder, like my water bladder, the hose froze. It wasn't, ours wasn't insulated, Tanya and I. So before the climb, I thought, oh, I'll do a makeshift insulation. I took my wool sock, and taped it around the hose. Unfortunately, it didn't work. It still froze. So I couldn't even use that. Yeah, but it was cold, and then it got windy as well. So the wind picked up halfway through, but the guide said, this is nothing. He said that at times they would have to stop and hug a rock because they'd be afraid they'd get blown off the mountain. So yeah, so imagine for me, it was very challenging. It's the altitude. It's like you're walking so slow, but it feels like you're in zone 4, or nearly threshold, or, because you just can't get enough oxygen in you, and that saps your energy. And then there's the exhaustion, and it's at night, so you want to sleep. So all of that combined made it very, very difficult. And I didn't think I was going to make it, in fact.
And so was the sunrise worth it? Because they had kind of woken you up in the middle of the night. I think they woke you up, wasn't it, at midnight or something like that?
Yes.
So that you guys could do this final hike to the top so that you could be there before the sunrise.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I guess it's worth it because you made it to the top. And it was an amazing experience getting to the top with my wife and the whole group. Actually, we all managed to get up there. There was 7 of us that summited, and I said it took about 7 hours to get up there, and you get to the summit, and it was incredible. It's hard to describe just a bit of a glacier, and then the sun come up, and it's just that it's like, it feels like finishing a marathon. It's like the elation that you get crossing that finish line, and then get the photos, and it's a great experience up there for myself, and to be able to do it with my wife. It's definitely special, and I guess it's worth it when you got there. But walking up it at the time, I was like, why are we doing this in the middle of the night? I just want to be sleeping. This is hard enough. Why do we have to do it at midnight? I said in the book, it's hard enough when you try to pull an all-nighter out clubbing or something, let alone climbing a mountain. But they must have some other reason to get up there. I don't know. They said it was for the sunrise, but that seems to be the schedule.
Okay.
And then afterwards, you come crashing back down, because after the elation, you realize you have a 3-hour trek to get back down. And at that time, I was running on fumes. I was on empty, in fact. And then you still have to descend back down to camp. And again, it was a very long day. So you started at midnight, just before midnight, we set off. We got to the top by around 6:30, 7 o'clock or something like that. And then by the time we got back down, I think it was about 11 or so, but we got down to the base camp. And then, but the day didn't end, because we had a quick rest, have lunch, and then we had another 8K trek all the way to the next camp. So that day was like a 17-hour day, which is like an Ironman cutoff time. So it was a very, very long day. And summit night was definitely, it was tough. It was definitely tough.
And how, because you were training also for, you had done the marathon already at this point, and you were still training for your Ironman, which was after the climb. So you were doing some training, and you did mention that you can't really train for the altitude except by going altitude, I guess, which you didn't do, I don't think. But what did your wife do? Like, how did she manage to train for that other than, because you guys had date hikes, but I think they were just like once a month or something, no?
Yes, yeah. So glad you mentioned Deha. Yeah, that was her training. So no, she was doing strength training, Tanya. So she
Okay.
was following a strength training program, and that's what she was doing. And then on top of like the date hikes that we did, which is it's great. Like that's what we kind of called it, because we would go out on weekends. We would drop off the kids to my in-laws, and then around London, there's the Chiltern Hills, just an hour away from us, or even, and then again about an hour and a half south of us, there's the Surrey Hills as well, beautiful countryside of England. And coming from Winnipeg, where Winnipeg, the prairie is completely flat, so a bit of elevation change to me is fantastic. So yeah, so we did this date hikes mainly to just like test out the equipment that we had gotten for Kilimanjaro, but also it was just a nice way to be away from the kids and just connect with nature and connect with each other, and just because you're just walking, you're active, and you're not going very fast, but you can just talk, and kind of that probably when you guys go for a run, you mind just wander, you can just converse quite easily. So we really enjoy that. In fact, we still do it regularly when we can. So yeah, so that's her preparation. And in fact, it was funny because everyone thought I'd be like, you're training for the Ironman, like within the group, there's like, you have no problems with this. But again, summit night, it's the altitude that gets you. So, I think most people, I mean, I've read when I did some research, all sorts of people, you didn't have to be super active to do Kilimanjaro. You do your preparation, but I think it's a challenge that's manageable for most people, and it can be, it can be done. Although having said that, unfortunately, there was a girl that started, there was 8 of us that started, and unfortunately she had a problem with her hips, so she had to turn back after the first day. So you can't take it for granted. Like, you can't underestimate the challenge.
As you were going up, did you see any people coming down who were, in distress? They have to come down quickly if they have altitude problems.
Yeah. So on summit night, we saw that a lot. So the start of the climb, you see a lot of, I mentioned in the book that there was a lot of dazed and confused hikers being escorted down by their guides, and you can see them visibly just don't know where they were. So I saw a couple of those, and then at some point during the night, I remember, because I was reading about someone that I decided not to read about it in the guidebook, because I thought ignorance was bliss. But I remember a section Tania read out to me that, ignore the sobbing around you. And I remember thinking that. And then right on cue, I looked up and I hear sobbing around me, there was this woman just crying her eyes out. And I guess at that point, maybe she realized that, the mountain beat her, and she can't go any further, unfortunately. So it is really, like there, I guess, I don't know what the success rate is for summiting, but I guess it's not 100%. But the other thing is, when we're on our way down, we saw these weird contraptions. They had like it's a bed, and they have like a single wheel attached in the middle with shock absorbers. And I'm like, I asked the guy, what is that? It's like, oh yeah, it's a stretcher. So what they do is
kind of a high-speed downhill stretcher.
Exactly. So you get 2 guys, one at each end, and they'll put the hiker on the bed, on the stretcher with the shock absorber, and they can run down the mountain if needed.
Okay.
In case of an emergency.
Wow.
And you also raised quite a bit of money for cancer research as part of your Kilimanjaro challenge.
Yes. Again, when it's one of those ideas just popped into my head. I was while I was during my training, I think it was for the marathon. It was early part of the year, starting the challenge. I was kind of running. I was just running, brain working away, and I was just fantasizing about, what would it be like doing the Ironman. I thought, it'd be cool if my friends was kind of supporting me. And again, this is my little fantasy world, my little happy fantasy world. And it's like, oh, it'd be cool if my friends would be supporting me. And it's like, oh, maybe they'll throw a party, and to support me, they'll have like a little paddling pool, and then maybe a stationary bike and a treadmill, and they'll take turns doing the race while I'm doing the actual race in this little setup. And I thought, oh, that'd be funny. And then maybe it can go viral. And then I had the idea, well, that'd be cool if that video would go viral, but, maybe it'd be better if you do it for a cause. And that's when I thought, oh, yeah, we can do it for a cause. And then Cancer Research is a charity I've supported. And I mentioned, unfortunately, like the year before, my uncle passed away with cancer. So it's one of the charities I support. And I would know other people, my friends, like one of my best friend's dad passed away with cancer. And at the time when I was training, there was like several people I kind of knew that was going through cancer. So I thought, I would support raise money for charity. And that's how that came about. And, sometimes I would do my training run, like the previous year, where when I do a training run, just in my head, I would give shout outs to people, to these people that are suffering with cancer. This run is for my uncle, or this run is for Dave, or this run's for Ty, and just to give him a little push. And again, I don't know, it's just, again, I either to entertain myself while I'm running, but maybe there is some connection there. Sometimes you give out some positivity. So yeah, that's how that came about. So it was like a minor thing it's not a minor thing, but it was like a subtext of doing the challenges. But it wasn't the main thing. It's not the main thing I'm saying. It's just, I'll be quite honest. That was just, I thought it was a cool idea to do. Like, I think I mentioned in the book, like, I know there's a lot of races here in the UK where to enter a race, you can go via charity places.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good way to raise money for charity and stuff. And I've done that in the past, but I've had like a bad experience once about it. So I try not to enter a race via the charity route, because I would just donate to the charity instead. But in this case, I wasn't entering a race because of charity. So I just wanted to do it, in spite of that. So and I raised a modest target of £1,000. And, throughout the year, I did manage to surpass that as well. So that was a nice little thing to be able to do as well.
Yeah, I have to say that, like, I'm kind of the same with entering races through charity. Like, I know, for example, the London Marathon, I think you could get a charity spot, but the amounts you have to raise are just, they're very big.
Yeah,
and so then, like, I feel like it's almost more pressure than running the race is to, like, am I going to be able to raise all this money? So
exactly.
yeah, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
For the Ironman that you did, just because I really want to ask this question, you met this kid that told you that he was doing his first triathlon and it was the Ironman. And he also in the same breath told you that he registered for a 60K ultra, but he was not able to complete it. Did you ever find out if he finished the Ironman?
No, I actually didn't follow up on him, and I was trying to get his race number, but I didn't catch it. But yeah, it was funny because, as I mentioned, I met him in the race briefing, and he was, I guess, 18 or 19.
He must have been, because they don't allow you to register for those unless you're 18 at least.
Yeah, he maybe 20 at a push. But he said he tried to do an ultra, 60K ultra, the previous year, which he didn't succeed, unfortunately. And he's like, right, this is my first triathlon. It's an Ironman. And it's my revenge, quote unquote, he says, because he didn't complete it last year. And I was just shaking my head. I was like, wow, good on you. Good luck. Because for me, my Ironman journey has taken, like, at that time, 9 years to build up to that distance. I started from the sprint because I couldn't swim, and I was like, barely able to complete 800 meters of the swim. And then, it's taken me 9 years. So for him to jump in and, do his first race as the Ironman, hats off to him. I hope he did complete it, but who knows? I would have loved to hear his experience. I didn't see him for the whole weekend, so yeah.
That's too bad. I wanted to know if he managed to succeed, because I can't imagine really that.
Yeah, we have a saying that we use a little bit in our podcast, where you take something on and you will get rewarded in one of two ways. Usually you will get success, or you will get learning.
Yes.
It felt to me like that kid was going to get an awful lot of learning.
Yeah. It's
But
funny.
the thing is, you never know, right? Because like it could be that he was successful, in which
Yeah, it
case,
Yeah,
could be. You
exactly.
get all the learning as well, probably.
probably.
Yeah.
One of the quotes I learned in Australia is this very good quote. It's like, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want.
Yeah.
And I play, I use that a lot, especially after Australia, and that kind of motivated me to actually try things, because I just thought, well, if you don't succeed, you get experience, so either way it's a win-win. So so that was a quote I still use. I've taught it, tried to teach my friends, and I use it, and I tell it to the girls, and experience what you get when you don't get what you want, and as long as you try, you'll get something out of it. And hopefully that kid did get something out of it. Maybe another revenge for next year.
Yeah, maybe he'll have to sign up for, I don't know, 100-miler next time to
Yeah,
get
100 mile, I
revenge
was
for
going
the
to say.
60K
Yeah.
and the Ironman. So you also mentioned that you and I think it comes through, like, you're just a very social person, and you actually mentioned during your training there were a lot of times when you tried not to drink as much when you went out with your friends and those kinds of things. And I feel like, because I get this a lot at work, where people just think that because you're an endurance athlete that you like live like a monk all the time. And you seem to just be like able to live like a monk when you need to, and then like you can, in the off season you enjoy what you enjoy. So I don't know, how do you stay focused for the period of time that you need to? Because in this case, with your 3 challenges, it was a good portion of the year that you were training and trying not to stay out too late and trying not to drink too much, and all the other things that you were trying not to do too much of, like eat too much bad food and all those things.
Yeah, no, I'm not as disciplined when it comes to, first of all, eating, not disciplined at all, but partying, definitely not as disciplined at all, because I love a good time, Liz. I do like one of my friend's favorite saying when he sees Howie, good times always. And but what helped is that I've got kids now as well. So at that time when the kids were very young, the social aspect kind of taking the back seat. So that kind of helped. But having said that, I did go out a few times, and one of the times is like my friends had a bachelor party, in fact. So, and I just did like a 30K, one of my longest run, I think 30Ks or something for the marathon, and had to go to this bachelor party. And after a shot of tequila and coffee martinis, it was like training was out the window. That was the last thing I had in mind. So, I like to enjoy myself. It's about balance, isn't it? So you do try to balance it out. And I do believe in that, balancing everything, family, your friends, having fun. Because you do have to enjoy yourself. I personally think, I find enjoyment in lots of different things, and a lot of them, and socializing is one of them. So we went out to Miami during that year as well, and I was out with my colleagues, so did a lot of drinking there. I run again to challenge myself and to finish the race. So there's a time aspect, but that's secondary to me, because to me finishing is my challenge. So I'm not going for a specific time or whatnot. So I do get disappointed when I didn't, I don't reach my target time per se, but that's manageable, because I know, especially for the long distance endurance stuff, it's just finishing is the challenge in itself, like the last 10K of a marathon, you're like, after you hit the wall, you're like, oh my God, this is impossible. How can I get finish? So it's a balancing act, I'd say, and you try to do that not just with the social aspect, and then your family and your work and stuff, and you try to figure out a way to make sure it all works.
Yeah, in your book, you mentioned that you got a letter from your I guess it's your elder daughter Sophia for your birthday, saying how much she looked up to you because you achieved your goals. How did that make you feel as an athlete and a father?
Oh, emotionally, my heart just kind of burst when I read that, and it was in front of friends when I read the card, and I couldn't help the tears, and I was just crying. That was she got me the card when on my 40th birthday. So when I actually turned 40, after finishing all the challenges, what she wrote was very touching. And for, at the time she was 9, for a 9-year-old to be saying it was incredible. And as a father as well, it was incredible. And she said, you completed all your challenges, really proud of you. I'm lucky to have a dad just like you, and you taught me never give up. And if you can do anything if you believe. And those are powerful things for a little child. And as a parent, something I could only help. I would love to be able to teach them, and for her to be able to say that and write it back to me was very special. So yeah, and I'm not going to give away what I said in the end of the book, but but yeah, so it was very touching, Alan. And as a father yourself, I'm sure you can only imagine, and what your kids have written throughout the years. So it's right up.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I got to do couple of years ago was to actually run a marathon with my youngest daughter. She ran her first ever marathon, and I ran with her, and that was quite special.
Oh, excellent. Oh, that's amazing.
And maybe that's on your agenda at some stage. You never know.
You know what? I was telling the girls, well, maybe we'll do a triathlon relay, I can either do the swim or the run or, cycle, you pick. My youngest, Elisa, she's in the swimming club at the moment. Although she doesn't like it, she's actually quite good at it. So she's been put up the levels, and she's in the group with like 13, 14-year-olds, and she's like
I guess the trick is to get them to do it because they want to, and not because you want them to, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And the reason we actually put her in there, because it's cheaper than swimming lessons. So I said, once you learn how to swim, and she can swim properly now, she can actually do the butterfly, which I don't know how to do yet. So she's going to teach me. But yeah, she's at the point where I think another year, when she's like, oh, if she doesn't want to do it anymore, she probably won't continue, if it's up to her.
So I guess you better do that team triathlon like in the next year.
Yeah.
Because she's all trained up in swimming, so
yeah,
you can do the swim, and Sophia or you can do the bike, and then there's the run, so the person left over can do the run.
Yeah, maybe all three of them can do it, and I'll just be the coach. So Tania can do the run or the cycle, and I'll just cheer them on. Because they certainly was a big part of my race. So doing the Ironman without them to support me and cheer me on, I didn't think, there was plenty of times I wanted to quit, and probably would have if it wasn't for them. So, yeah. In fact, Tania just did 2 weeks ago. She did a 100K hike.
Wow.
Over 2 days. So I was able to give back in the sense I was a support crew. She did it with 2 other friends. So I was, driving,
that's cool.
Stop, supporting them. So that was nice. I actually enjoyed it, being a support crew, because for once I wasn't racing. I just get to cheer.
So I guess so that we don't impose on any more of your time, maybe we can just ask a couple of the basic
wrap-up questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like one of them is just what do you hope that people get out of the book? Like what message do you kind of want to leave them with?
Oh, message. Well, no, it's a tough one. I didn't think about that one. But I'll tell you this though. When I was writing the book, I wrote it in real time in 2017, as a diary entry. And then in 2018, I was editing it. And then in the last few years trying to get it published. So what I thought, there's moments where I thought, oh, why am I doing this? People will want to read this and stuff. But I thought, to keep myself going when you had doubts whether this is actually going to be any good, I just said, if I can inspire it or motivate at least one person to try a run or a 5K run by reading the book, I would consider the book a success. So hopefully someone would read the book and pick up, challenge themselves to try to do something, whatever big or small it might be, whether it's a 5K run or learn how to swim or something, go for a little hike. I met this person, this guy in Miami. He's like, oh no, my wife and I are very athletic and stuff. I said, look, I found date hikes. I'd explained the whole concept of date hikes. It's so easy. You could find get out there in nature, go for a little walk. And for some people, that's a challenge. So you start with that. So yeah. So hopefully they'll get something out of it in that sense.
And if people want to get copies of your book, is there anywhere in particular that you'd like to direct them?
Not in particular. So in Canada, I think Amazon is probably the easiest way. Although you can order it like other online retailers, you can get it. If you can come to my website, there's chasethatsmile.com. That's available for via my publisher or Amazon as well. I hate to, I like Amazon, but some people might do. But if you just Google it, it'll come up with all different online retailers. Yeah, and ebooks, it's available in ebooks as well. So on Apple iBooks and Google as well, and Kindles and other devices. My friend downloaded using Kobo, so in Canada. So
And if people wanted to follow you, where's the best place to follow you?
right, yeah. So there's my website. So I'm learning all about social media. That's my next challenge.
Your Instagram is quite good though. Like you always have like these nice pictures with some kind of quote on them that's either inspirational or has to do with triathlon.
I'll be honest with you, Liz, I'm learning, and I read somewhere that you need to do content each day, and I figured out the easy way, and I actually quite enjoy doing them, is quotes and motivational quotes. It's either running, swimming, cycling, or triathlons or hiking. So it's easy, kind of like at the end of the day after work, I'll just find a quote and put something together. So that's up on the website, chasethatsmile.com. I'm on Instagram. I think it's like at chase full stop smile, because the other one was taken. Actually, it was taken by me, but they canceled the account and I can't get it back for some reason. But you'll find it on my website. And on Facebook, I've got a Facebook page as well called Chase That Smile, without any full stops in the middle, or periods, you would say in Canada.
Yeah, just in general comments about the book. It's basically a book about, every person who's done anything athletic. You don't have to look at the book and go, I could never do that. You can read the book and go, okay, does Harold have some skills that I don't have? Maybe not. And to that extent, we've all got our hopes and dreams for our sporting challenges or our athletic challenges, and we've all got our obstacles and difficulties with other aspects in our life. Wherever you are in that process, a significant degree of commitment is needed, and you have to stay the course while not messing up the rest of your life, basically. And I think what we see in the book, Chase That Smile, is basically you doing that and doing a superb job of it. The neat thing, I think, is that you're not an elite athlete, that you're a determined finisher. You don't give up, and you work your way how to do it, and you're committed. And I think we can all sort of identify with that and admire it. It's what we want to see for ourselves at whatever level we're at. The approach of writing is sort of a diary approach, and it felt a little strange to begin with when I started with it, but after a while you start to pull us then into your background, your life background, your challenges, your connections, etc. And as that sort of story builds up, the diary effect works perfectly. So what I would say to people is, if they get a copy and read it and they go, oh, it's kind of like written like a diary, I'm not sure I like this, stay with it for about 5 or 10 pages, and you'll find, because then you write, Thursday I did this training, but then you go, but I was reflecting on 3 years ago with my buddies, and then you get the background story that comes out. So I would encourage people to stay with it. Something we didn't mention, the photo of Harold, Tania, and his two little girls crossing the Ironman finish line right at the end of the story after you've described it all is absolutely priceless. I'm so glad that you put that photograph in at the end. It was like a little gift, like the cherry on the cake, so to speak, at the end of the book. So superb. I mean, what I would, just to finish off, what I would say about Harold is he has a spirit of can-do and a great approach to visualize how to get there, and to visualize what he's done in the past, and then to have the appreciation for that. Extremely, extremely positive and can-do. I think in the 50s, in your 50s, Harold, we're probably going to get a book that is, your challenge for Everest and the North Pole, and maybe a moonshot or something like that. There will be the 3 challenges. I could see that happening.
Oh no. Well, who knows? Don't plant seeds in my head.
Over to you, Liz.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a nasty email from Tania after this podcast airs. Yeah, I also like the journal format. It made me feel like I'm getting a glimpse of a diary, and I enjoyed the sometimes random thoughts along the way, like when Harold Googled the symptoms of a midlife crisis. I'll let you guys read that. The list was funny. Because I think every long distance athlete probably has several of these symptoms, which include wanting to participate in long endurance activities. I know that I've probably been in my midlife crisis since I was about 25, and I don't have a sports car yet. So yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And it's mostly light and entertaining reading, but it does have some lessons in it. So the things that I took away were you never know what will happen if you say yes to a new experience. That seems to be Harold just seems to be good at saying yes to all kinds of experiences and doesn't even seem to ask himself the question of like what might happen. No, he just says yes, and then he just figures it out. With some planning, you can fit in some time for yourself among a busy work and family schedule. That was also sort of a lesson that I think Harold gave us during the book. And most important one was that your attitude matters. So the thing is that the story is not just all about success. It's just, it seems like his successes, whether that's being able to fit in that midweek long run, which like when you are working for 8 hours during a day, and then also you have to pick up your daughter after school and whatever, and then you have to go do a long run, which can be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours long. That's not easy to fit in, but it seems like he never really dwelled on those things. You know, he really was very positive about all his training that he did and just like all the life experiences, and they weren't necessarily all just good things. Often Harold says life is good, thank you, like we've already mentioned, and it's not because he's accomplished his A goal. He'll say these things during training, when he wakes up beside his wife in the morning, during moments with his kids. And for me, it was a reminder to be grateful for every day, because the journey is more important than the destination. So thank you, Harold, for those.
In fact, thank you, Harold.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we should say it 3 times, definitely.
Yes. Oh, that's very kind of you guys. That's very, very nice to get feedback from what you've taken out of the book. You put it very well. It's well put. Thank you. It works saying it 3 times, doesn't it?
All the best in your next adventures.
And so to you guys too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to Harold for spending time with us today and for providing copies of his book. If you'd like to leave us feedback on how we can improve the podcast, or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in future episodes, please leave us your comments on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes as they are released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening for a while and are wondering how you can help us out, here are a couple of ways. If you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends about us, or share a link to your favorite episode with a running partner. Or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, if this is how you listen to the podcast. Or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. You have various choices, but 5 stars is the only one you need. Also, you may be aware we are now on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can go to the Buy Me a Coffee website, look for Running Book Reviews under creators, and buy us a coffee or 2. That's all for us for now. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.